No questions?
Nothing yet.
Huh?
Um, Someone says, out of curiosity, who created spirituality first?
Who created what?
Spirituality first. Some say Kemet, others say India.
Kemet.
Say Kemet is Africa.
I know what it is. We go to we go to I don't know. Most people can't handle that answer because the history of man has been so. Um, it's been so convoluted that that it's a big controversy. But neither one created spirituality. Spirituality was here from the beginning. Spirituality is comes from the absolute, and the absolute being God, supreme God, which was here billions and billions and billions of years before this race of people, before either one of those race of people got here. One thing the scientists did get right was that the first body type for our race was the black body. So they did get that right. And the first civilized people were were the black people, and that's in all the mystic teachings. That's not hidden, although certain fashions of mysticism don't like to talk about it, but it's there. This thing keep coming back. Any other questions?
Slash protect oneself from the detrimental energy of others.
We went over that in several classes. That's I think we have some literature online on that too. You can use visualization practices where you put the violet flame around yourself, and this seems to help you avoid negative mental images that that you have to move through as you go through your daily life. Also, there's several different techniques to doing that. We have a huge video library there online that you can look through, and we have pamphlets as well on our meetup site and I think, in our website as well. It's called, I think it's called The Violet Flame, The Practice of the Presence. We have one called Psychic Self-Defense. We have a lecture called Psychic Self-Defense. And then we have the pamphlets that describe, that tell you how to do the Violet Flame or the Practice of the Presence.
Can you move the mic a little higher?
Is it what?
Can you move it a little higher?
Okay.
Are there better times of the day or evening to engage spiritual practices?
Any time is good, but there's recommended, it's recommended 4 in the morning, like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And then if you don't get up that early, then first thing, right at dawn, midday, evening, and midnight are good times to do spiritual practices. But if you're doing practices like services to the world, like prayer to the world, that's any time. Or healing practices, you could do that at any time. Mm-hmm.
Where it feels like my spirit is coming out of my body and going somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I stop it because I don't know where it's going or how to maneuver that if it were to happen. What is that, and what do you do if you let it go?
Does it feel like an out-of-body experience?
It feels like I'm coming out. No, well,
Your consciousness is leaving.
right. Where is
Yeah.
it going?
Well,
Right.
that happens every time you go to sleep.
Yes, but it happens when it's happened when I'm
But you're
awake.
conscious, right?
Right.
You're conscious of it. So it's not that you not asleep, it's that you are awake while it's happening, and that's called the out of body experience.
It's terrifying.
Well, it's no reason to be terrifying. It is what it is. It's because it's happening it happens every night. But you're not conscious of it when it happens. So when you begin to become conscious of it, it's a normal process. You can let it happen. And then when you want to come back to the body, just demand that the body take a deep breath. And when when your physical body take a deep breath, your astral body will come back into the physical body.
Is there a way to control where it goes, or is it?
Yeah. You can if you're conscious and your body's responding to you, you can tell it to go somewhere. The problem is that you're not going to immediately control it. You're not going to meet, because in other words, if you say Egypt, you'll be there in seconds. You'll be wherever your mind wanted you to be in Egypt within seconds. And you won't have recollection of which route you took to get there. So if you name another place, you'll be there. If you think of another place, you'll be there. So you have to have control over your thought. That's why Raja Yoga, which is the yoga practice to achieve those, that ability. That's why I focus on concentration, contemplation, and eventually meditation, because you have to be able to control your mind and have a single thought and have direct control over your mind and your emotions or your desires or whatever. And then you can navigate the other bodies, the astral bodies, the etheric bodies within you, because they're counterparts of yourself to move out in other realms of existence. So, that's what it is. So every level has a different realm of existence and a different body type, vibrational and textural. So wherever your consciousness is, wherever your consciousness is and allow you to develop, you will project with that particular type of astral body. But you have to have a mental control to control it.
I can control it by stopping it because I've stopped it from happening.
Yeah, you can. I mean, it will tell. I mean, you have control over it. It's just that if you let it move, if you move out, you'll move so quick that might scare you until you gain control over it. So that's the problem with that. But it's not a real problem. It's just you got to get over your fears. Get over your fears, and then you can navigate where you want to go. Any other questions?
They're just asking if you could repeat your question because they couldn't hear it.
My question was, when I feel an out-of-body experience happening consciously, it's terrifying. What do I do? And that was the question.
Any other question?
Where can you learn about numerology and how to use it to advance your spiritual and material life?
There's several books uh, that go into that. Um, I don't remember all their names. I know some of the most popular ones that I liked as a child was Kevin Quinn Avery book. I think it's called The Number of Life. It's a rare book. You might be able to find it online. Uh, and there was another book. I can't remember the lady's name. Her name was Catherine something. Yeah, something I don't remember her. And then there's some Eastern Indian, but it's more scientific numerology books that I like. That uh, I don't cater to the more materialistic numerology books because they tend to talk about the physical and not the emotional, mental, and spiritual. I don't cater to those authors because The numerology was actually designed to read the vibrational patterns of your makeup. So to focus on just physical or material things is not going to help you. You have to have all of them. You have to focus on all of them because it's the subtle, the mental, the spiritual, the emotional, and the physical. And Catherine and Kevin Quinn Avery, they focus on all of those. They gave you a more balanced look at it. I think we did a did we record that numerology class or no? Oh, so yeah, because we wanted to keep it private for those people who was there.
General lecture.
Yeah, so
It's
there's a lecture tape about numerology uh, in our video library that you can look up.
Are there any techniques to limit or halt fear? How to stop it from becoming a hormonal reality in the body?
Raja Yoga. I mean, just Raja Yoga help with those with that. And there's a good book. It's an old book. It's not that old. It's maybe like 100, maybe 110 or 15 years old. By Yoga Ramacharaka, translated by it was translated by William Walker Atkinson, and it's called a series in Raja Yoga lessons or something like that, or Raja Yoga. It's called Raja Yoga, and I think we have it on our website. You can download it for free. It's been around so far that it's right there on the web, and I think the first 3 or 4 chapters give you exercises to use that help you control that. That's also has something to do with diet too. So I think I gave that book out, the Ayurveda book. There's there's techniques and diet type things to do with that too. So as we get older, our our body hormonal things begin to shift. So is in the in the Ayurvedic science, they have a way of telling you what diet to go on to shift your diet. So I think that book is on our website too, isn't it? Is it?
Maybe not.
Maybe okay. So you can call in for it.
How can you pray for others and the world without being selfish? Meaning prayer without expecting something good in return.
intent is behind everything. So that's something you have to wrestle with. And then you have to know how to pray. Most people don't know how to pray, unfortunately, but there's a technique to praying. But intent is the is the key behind any type of mystical exercise or technique or practice. So that, in fact, being selfish and is something contrary to our nature. To be honest with you, most people would say it's part of our nature, but it's contrary to our true nature. If we look at the sustaining beings that the sustaining power slash beings that we depend on, they give to all, irrespective of who they are, meaning the earth, the sun, the solar system. These are great uh, uh, godlike beings that we depend on. And the earth doesn't deny us anything, and the sun doesn't deny us anything. So our true nature, because we're made up of their elements, of their grace, because this body is an earthly body. So and it sustained itself by the sun and the moon and the whole solar system. So we are of essence uh, the children of these great beings, and by our true nature, we're not selfish. We're only selfish in our own imagination or makeup. So it shouldn't be hard once you understand this. Once you train your mind, you should know that you are part of a collective consciousness, and that if you deny anyone, you deny yourself. So that's the problem with not understanding.
Are we all descendants of the planet Maldek?
I think most of the people on this earth is. I think most of them are.
Is it our true nature to be loving and giving? And is it the learning within our culture that sets up selfish, self centered values?
Yeah, that's a learned behavior that will not sustain itself. So real truth, real truth has a negative and a positive side to it, and because it have a negative and positive side to it, it has a neutral side to it. And when you don't see uh, those three polarities, then it cannot sustain itself. It must fizzle out. So being selfish and egotistic and all these so-called negative traits, they cannot sustain themselves. They cannot last. So eventually they fizzle out. And the consciousness of man rise above those things, and eventually uh, they realize that, as we are taught in our first year of college, that no man is an island. So we're taught that in humanities. So, and that's so true, that we depend on each other.
When can you tell when or if the Kundalini is untying a Granty knot? I guess how can you tell when the Kundalini is untying a Granty knot?
Well, that's something that happens at the brink of adeptship. So that wouldn't happen without you having conscious awareness of it. So that's a complex subject, but that wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen if without you having being conscious of it. And if it did, some type of way, then you would cease to exist on this physical plane, because the energies that's released you'll have some type of spontaneous combustion. So on the physical body. So remember, the first Granty knot is the base of the spine and the sex center. This Granty knot has been pulled together in order to give you the opportunity to develop yourself. The second Granty knot is the solar plexus center and the heart chakra, and the third is the throat, and the Christ chakra. So it may take lifetimes to train the body in order to raise the Kundalini up from the base of the spine to the sex center. And when you gain control over that energy, where you can move it back and forth rapidly in a high capacity, then you will have experienced many psychic experiences. You will have demonstrated many types of clairvoyance, psychometry, telekinesis. All these things you will have to a point experienced, controlled, mastered, and put away. And then you'll be able to raise the Kundalini fully up to the sex center, and take it up to the solar plexus, and then you untie the knot, the Granty knot that holds together the complete power of the sex center and base of the spine center, and push all that energy up into the solar plexus center. And then you experience the solar plexus center. But you have to bring the energy back and tie the knots. So once you can do that, you'll be totally conscious of it. If not, then you will have another chance in another life to do it, because you will have to vacate the physical body. Okay, so any other questions?
So when during a full rise of Kundalini,
Mm-hmm.
like all the energy from the lower centers is pulled out,
Mm-hmm.
and if all the energy from the body is withdrawn, what sustains the body during like samadhi?
It depends on how far you pull it up.
It's like if you pull it to the throat or above.
Yeah. So then there's an area in the brain, in the brain part, that keeps the brain and part of the heart are still alive from moving into a complete death state. So that it sustains the body to allow you to come back. And that's why they teach us, if you find a yogi, adept, or master in a death-like state, do not assume that that he or she is dead. Touch the top of the head, and it should be warm. If it's warm, then give them a while to come back before you bury them or destroy their body, because they move into a conscious death state in order to obtain a high spiritual state of meditation. So at that point, the body, all the energies that sustain the life force in the body, is moved into a more etheric type state of existence to connect them with the cosmic consciousness of this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And that's what's really happening. All right?
So even though in that conscious death state, there's no food, water, or even breathing is occurring, it's that higher etheric energy that still sustains and keeps the physical body from deteriorating.
Yeah, it sends a layer of a scream of energy into the body to stop rigor mortis from setting in. So, in fact, now scientists have found it's kind of like an insect type creature, because I think it can live in water. It can live in very hot conditions, and it can live in space. And in fact, they took it out into space, and they found that this particular creature can go into this meditative state, and you will assume that it's dead, and it's not dead, because as soon as it comes out of the state, it 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 releases the water. Somehow it builds up or pull the water out of the atmosphere and rejuvenates its body and just keep moving. But it goes into these hibernated states. So that right there proved that what the yogis have been saying for thousands of years is true. That they can go into these death-like states, and they have hooked up these yogis and watched their heart stop and watch them go into a death-like state. They got it on video. I'm sure if you search somewhere, you'll see it somewhere. They got it on video where they can do this. It's no mystery anymore. So, but yeah, the body doesn't die. The body does not die. And I think in one of those wars, either World War I or World War II, when they was going through some of those areas where these monasteries are and these yogis are, and they used to use these huge forests in order to go and go into meditation. These secluded places where no one goes. They found groups of them in these states that they thought they was dead. They thought they just went out there to die. But as soon as they started bulldozing the trees and the forests, they woke up, walked away to go find another spot, which scared, the bejeebers out of the soldiers that was told to clear the place out. So it's all type of evidence of these that they can go into a death-like state. All right.
Is the aura completely withdrawn within
Huh?
them, or when they're in that death-like state, is the aura completely withdrawn, or does it expand really large?
It depends on what state they're in. Sometimes the aura is withdrawn in the higher states. In the lower states, the aura is not completely withdrawn.
Do you believe it's possible to really be a breatharian then, consciously? Or is that just
Yeah. I mean, some people have did it. Very few. Very few. But I know some people claim they are and they not. I've seen some of those people. They claim that they are and they're not. But you have some people that have been able to to go long periods without eating. That's that's one of the things about yoga too. When you practice yoga for long periods of time, you don't have to eat. You can go all day long and maybe eat a couple of things, and you won't lose weight. You won't. You go all day long and you're not hungry. In fact, if you don't tell yourself to eat, you might forget to eat. Now the problem with that, it causes health conditions. So I know a lot of people who practice yoga. They get all type of health conditions because their mind drives the body. Food doesn't drive the body, and that's why in yoga they stress certain diets to eat in order to make sure that that you don't fall into not eating. You know, because when you can regulate the energy, you can just go 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 without, and then it catch up with you after 3 or 4 days. So for many years, they will have these monasteries in order to teach people, and they'll get them a regimen of what to do. Because if not, they wouldn't do it because they don't feel a need to replenish the body. You know, so and that's one of the dangers of practicing some of these techniques, and that's why they have the regiments, and that's why they have all the discipline, because they'll get to a point where they don't need to eat. They make them eat 2, 3 weeks at a time. You need to eat. You need to eat because they're moving on this on a different level. You understand what I'm saying? They detach themselves from the body so much that they just demand the body to go do this, man, the body, and after a while they come up with all type of health conditions. Swami Sivananda, who a lot of people don't know, he was a doctor. So he wrote books on this, and he taught his disciples, who also were medical doctors as well, to begin to write a lot of books to teach the people, that you have to live in the physical world, the mental world, and the emotional world. So you have to take care of all these different things, because you had all these yogis coming down with diabetes, coming down with depression. When they come back to walk among everybody else, they had conditions. Because why? Because when they pushed themselves, they wasn't eating on a regular basis. They wasn't. So Sivananda said, eat every 3 hours, just a little bit, just something, in order to get them in a regimen of eating. Because when you do pranayama, you have to wait 3 hours and then do the pranayama, and then wait 1 more hour afterwards, and so that you don't have some type of condition, the bends or whatever. But he taught them, this is the way you do it. You have to eat like this, and then practice, and then because because it was creating all type of health conditions among the people. So it's very important that you eat and drink properly.
My body feels energy coming in at the base of my spine and being released out within my body. Can you tell me what process is happening to me spiritually?
um, the if you're practicing pranayama or some type of kundalini exercises, the first thing you're taught is to bring the energy into the body via the Ida and Pingala, which is the primary is the two nostrils. The left being Ida, and the right being Pingala. and you bring this energy down both sides of the spine, and then up through Shushuna, although it won't go up through Shushuna. It'll go back on the on the on the Nodic uh, uh, conduit of Shushuna, and then you're trained. The reason why you do this, you train the mind to control that energy to move down and up Shushuna, and you bring it straight up through the Christ center or the third eye, and lodge it 6 inches in front of the forehead. And you're trained to do that in order to to guide the Kundalini energy that runs through the body, freely, that gives you life, gives you movement, gives you sight, gives you hearing. The reason why you practice that is to train the existing energy that Kundalini have released, and Kundalini, and that sustains the movement and consciousness of the body. You're training it to come up the spine and and listen to your command and come out through the Christ center in order to give you, the soul, uh, complete control over this basic consciousness. Because this basic consciousness repels the commands of the soul, you know. So that's why. Now, the energy inside the base of the spine naturally flows up, but it falls naturally too in the state of mind that we're in, only because it's untamed. The energy from the heart chakra falls down and springs back up to the heart chakra naturally in the state of mind that we're in, only because it's untamed. When you, as a yogi or a mystic, learn to blend these two energies together, you become an adept. Okay, you're on the verge of becoming an adept because the rest of the energies cross and blends themselves because they have to in the patterns in which they go. Is these two energies, apana and prana, apana being of the heart chakra, apana being of the base chakra, is these two energies that regulate consciousness and sustains consciousness that will not mix with each other unless you force it to. So that's our greatest challenge of developing ourselves spiritually. So in the beginning, you will feel the energy go up from the base of the spine, and you will feel it fall back down as though it's radiating throughout the body, but it's not. The sex energy radiates throughout the whole body, and you might feel that. You might feel the first push of apana, but it goes up, it comes back down, and then Vyana, you may feel the explosion of Vyana, which is the sex center, which travels throughout the whole body. But once you gain control over apana and prana, then you're on the verge of adeptship.
So at times when you're in concentrating and you, like when you're studying or something and you stop breathing,
Mm-hmm.
does that mean you're tuning into a different type of prana, or you're a different type of mental state that forces physical parts aspects to cease?
Well, the body's funny. So sometimes uh, when you find that you're not breathing, is the body might be calibrating itself in order to build up the kundalini energy within it. Because retention of breath stimulates kundalini, the kundalini energy that's already flowing through the body. That's why the one of the yoga mudra practices uh, of pranayama teaches you to retain the breath, and it gives you a mudra in order to retain the breath, in order to stimulate that subtle energy, right? In order to fire it up, heat it up, and stimulates it. So that's why you may find yourself doing that. That all of a sudden the body may calibrate itself in order to shift consciousness a little bit, in order to move to a different level or whatever. But it does that naturally too. So if you notice, sometimes you wake up in the morning and you feel creative, you feel like uh, drawing something or listen to music or whatever, if you check yourself, your left nostril might be, uh, stopped up, or is it your right nostril might be stopped? The right nostril might be stopped up, and the left, and because the left side of the left side it stimulates the right side, and the right side stimulates the left side. So you'll notice that one of those nostrils are not firing properly. Because why? Because you don't have any interest in reason, logic, all those things that comes with the left side of the brain. You know, you're you're leaning on the creative side. So you'll notice that you can always check. And you'll see, oh yeah, this is what's happening. You know, when you are mentally stimulated on the other side, then you'll notice the same thing. So your body does that by itself. You know.
On the mic.
So no other questions? I was answering a question from last week or week before last, right? Yeah. So I went into it a lot last week, and we were supposed to finish this week. But I wanted to entertain the questions first.
Does retaining the breath outside the body, does that have a greater stimulating effect on Kundalini than holding it within?
What you mean retaining outside the body?
Like when you exhale and hold, that has a greater effect on Kundalini.
Yeah. In fact, there's a technique. There's a technique that you use in order to, when you do inhale or exhale, you measure how far you can inhale from, and then you measure how far you can exhale from, and then you hold. You know, and if you know anything about engineering, uh, the patterns you do, where you pull in energy, circulate it, hold, push it out, circulate it, hold, and what it does, it builds capacity. So in pranayama, you're taught to push the energy out so far, so many inches away from you that you can feel it, and pull it in so many inches away from you so you can feel it, and in order to build your capacity to push the energy all the way down to the bottom of the lung and fill it all the way up to the top of the lung, because most of us don't do that. We don't. And then release that energy, pull the prana out of the breath, right? And then you'll get to the point where when you can see the energy psychically, you'll see these energy goblets. And some of us see it already in the sunlight, you know. Especially if you go out into the wilderness, you'll see these circular type uh, 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 energy, we call it energy goblets. When you have that ability to pull on the energy, to pull massive amount of breath to you, you can also pull those bubbles of energy into you and benefit from it, benefit and stimulate the existing kundalini within the body, and you really use that to revitalize yourself, or just push on to the next level, or manipulate energy, some type of, if you want to do some type of manipulation of energy through service or healing or whatever. So that's what those methods are for.
Are those energy goblets the same things as orbs that people call spirits? Is that what you're referring
I
to?
think some people mix it up with that, and it's really just energy.
Okay.
People some people think that they're entities, but it's just energy.
What if I choose to take that energy from that orb? What if it's not a good orb? What if it's not a good,
Most
can I tell? Is it
most energy is neutral energy, and it's not. If the energy uh, it, is contaminated, you'll see. If you can see the energy, you'll see that it's contaminated. You'll see the color of it. In other words, and then if you can see it, then you can sense uh, whether it's good or bad. In other words, you understand what I'm saying? So like, if a fast car is coming towards you, you can see the person behind the car driving, and you can feel their intention to either hurt you, or they're unconscious or whatever. It's just an accident. You all of a sudden everything opens up and you can feel it. You can see it. You know it. It's the same thing when you see the energy. You know whether the energy has been projected there for a negative purpose or a good purpose. Those things you just know. The same way you see, it's just like a mad dog or whatever. You know when you see a friendly dog, or a dog that's vicious, or want to do wrong. Huh?
No.
No, well, they not really spirits. They might be thought forms, and a thought form and energy is different. Energy gobblers, they form from its natural environment. Thought forms they radiate from a person or persons, from a single person, or a collective consciousness, and they float like a cloud almost, and then you can feel the intent. It's just like when you go into a town, and all of a sudden you feel the mentality of that town without anyone telling you anything. That's what that is. But the energy is just energy. You feel the force of the energy. and you know whether that energy is good or bad. So
I have one. Another one.
I have a question about the the holding of the out breath and using the pranayama. I did some research on Raja Yoga a few years
mm,
ago, and they mentioned a breathing technique called the complete breath,
mm-hmm.
where you breathe from both the diaphragm and the lungs from the chest as well.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, is there another breathing technique that kind of goes beyond that? Because I found that to be really effective in expanding the amount of energy that I can
Yeah, I
absorb.
just described it a little bit. So I gave you the next step to that, where you count the inches of your out breath, in breath.
Right. Okay.
So that helps you build on the capacity of the complete breath. Because in the complete breath, they tell you to push the energy, to push the breath all the way down to the bottom of the lungs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or your diaphragm, they tell you to push the diaphragm out. And then when you can't do it anymore, you don't screen yourself. Then you kind of like lift the shoulders up
Yeah.
in order to allow the air to build up to the top of the lungs. All right. Once you have kind of accomplished that, the next thing you want to do is when you do take your in breath, try to measure how far you could pull the energy into you. Okay. They said that all of us live in a 20 cubic space of breath of oxygen or breath around us. Where the yogis tell you to measure how far you can pull the breath in, so that you can take advantage of that bubble of breath or oxygen around you. You know, so they try to have you to measure it 6 inches, 10 inches, 15 inches, 17 inches, 20 inches, that you could pull the air in to build your capacity to do that. And there's techniques to teach you how to do that.
So you mean like uh, visualizing the air over by that board when I breathe in being pulled into myself?
Well, not only there's a technique to actually do it. You want to feel your pull on that, and you can start off by holding your hand up in front of you or whatever. You want to feel yourself pulling the air, and you want to feel yourself exhaling the air. Okay, there's techniques to do it, and they use devices too as well. So, and then once you have uh, uh, developed the physical part of it, then you go into the mental part of it. You understand what I'm saying?
Hmm. So when we're
Because,
doing the pulling down the white light, we're kind of visualizing
yeah,
pulling
you
this.
creating a pattern. But at the same time, remember, pranayama is about blending the
The gross and subtle energies.
yeah, the gross and subtle energy. It's about is pranayama is hatha yoga, right?
Hmm.
And mantra yoga, mudra yoga, and raja yoga all in one. That's what it is, because the breathing of the breath is mantra. When you
Hmm.
breathe in and out, that's mantra.
Hmm.
That's a natural mantra. In fact, that's the soul chanting a mantra. All right, 21,600 times a day. That's the soul chanting a mantra in order to allow you to live on this physical plane. So you have to take control over that, right? And you have to build a capacity of that. If you slow down that breath and take more in with every breath and lower the number of times that you breathe in and out per day,
Hmm.
you extend your life.
Hmm.
Okay? You extend your life. So the yogi who can go into a conscious death can live 100, 200, 300 years if he need to be. See, because instead of him taking those 21,600 breaths a day, he can extend that, you know, and add more time to him living on that realm of existence where he's living at, you know. So that's what those techniques is about. All right.
Hmm. Okay. Can and do thought forms hijack dark, unkind, selfish, evil entities and channel negativity? Thought forms hijack. What do you mean by hijack, Loretta? I'm not sure.
We can't read too much stuff into this. I know people have heard a lot of crazy stuff, but the other side is very similar to this side. So, you know, so we gotta, we in order to gain greater knowledge, and sometimes you have to throw away a lot of stuff you've been taught. You know, some people claim that they can communicate with beings from the sun or Saturn. You know, and it is no way. When you look at their lifestyle, it is absolutely no way they doing that. First of all, they can't even describe to you what mind is or energy is or nothing. So they not doing nothing. They not. It's their imagination. You know, it's like in in we the law is God and God is the law. So there's a law to doing everything. So just like if we don't breathe in oxygen, then the body's gonna die. If we don't eat food properly, the body's gonna die. And the only way it doesn't die is that we manipulate the energy that we was getting from the food to take the place of the food. See, there's a law. It's just like when you go in the hospital, the first thing the doctor does is hook you up to an IV and start pumping fluids in you, you know, in order to balance out the liquid energy in the body, because 75% of our physical body is what? Liquids. So there's a law. There's just a law to, everything is governed by a law. And even when we die and go to the astral realms or the etheric realms, it's the same law. The same law. So now, saying that to say this, the only way someone can hijack you or possess you or lock themselves into your aura is that you open the door. Because if you close the door, they can't get in. It's as simple as that. They cannot get in. When you go home, do you leave your front door open so that all the strangers off the street can walk in? No, you don't do that. So it's the same thing with your body. You gotta train your mind and close your aura to certain things. So it's just a law. It's just a law. So don't believe all the hype, and you open yourself up to that. If someone stepped in, then somehow you open yourself up, to that. So it's not you either did it consciously or unconsciously, one or the other. Especially when you start studying mystic stuff and you start elevating your mind, and when you elevate your mind in a certain way, you create a shield around yourself because you're not subject to certain things because you have discrimination. And that knowledge, that wisdom, it codes the body in a way to alert you of of foolishness, of stuff that's just not right. So that's something we must be aware of. So um, just to say that, I mean, there's anything that gets in, we let it in somewhere. So we have to begin by examining ourselves. What did I do to allow this to happen? It's just as simple as that. Did she answer you back?
Okay. Just hijack meaning the energy is manipulated without the conscious intent of the parties involved in energy interactions. So she's not asking about the soul, mind, or body of the person. She's asking about a thought form. Do thought forms have consciousness and willful intent?
The only way if someone projected, because that thought form had to be created with intention. Remember I was talking to you all earlier about intention? Intention is the driving force of anything, of any magic, so-called magic or energy form, right? So without that proper intention, because intention brings about purpose and direction. It's like when we hold our hands up to pray, we pray with intention that colors the energy with purpose and direction. So that energy is going to leave us and connect to the thing that we're praying for. Because why? Now it has purpose and direction. It's just not energy flowing naturally in nature. We've pulled the energy into our auric fields. We've colored that energy, and we've pushed that energy out with purpose and direction. Now, most thought forms that form collectively in a building like this or a city like this, it goes out because of the collective consciousness of that place. So it has the thoughts and feelings of that neighborhood, and normally is powerless in a sense. Only thing it does is just corrodes the things around it. It's just like salt in the air. You know, you have this corrosion. We live in a very salty area around here because we live next to the sea, and it's a slow deterioration. The same way oxygen deteriorates things. You know, it's the same thing. So it's just a part of us. Now, if someone have targeted you, and you have to be a very, 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 very important person for them to target you, then they can target that energy towards you to hurt you. You know, and for them to be able to push that to you to hurt you, then that person has to be of a certain caliber. And majority of the times that doesn't happen. It happens on small scales, but it's uh, usually they use some type of physical object in order to get to you. You know, if they dealing with that type of magic or manipulation of subtle energy. You know, so but unless you're somebody that's that they want to, that's targeted or going to do something important, then you don't have to worry about those things. Just do your practice of the presence, your violet flame, and protect yourself. So, ask her, did I answer her question? So how long we
Yeah.
been going?
An hour and change.
Really?
Yeah, a little bit over an hour. So yes, you answered her question,
Okay.
and she'll email you some more questions. I have one other question.
Mhm.
It relates to the diagrams you used last week.
Mhm.
You said the Christ chakra, the major prana that corresponds to that is manas.
Mhm.
I didn't understand. Is that a cosmic manas or is that
Mhm.
that's a terrestrial manas?
Mhm.
I thought that was manas was the contaminated
Yeah, it
tattvas.
is. What you think you pure?
No, I just didn't understand how that could correspond to the Christ center.
Because the Christ Center have to communicate. It's a commando center.
Mm-hmm.
It's a commando center for your what? Your auric structure
Mm-hmm.
that you have did what to.
Contaminated.
You know. Now isn't that now the energy coming from there is a more pure energy than it's the manas there is more pure than what it is in the lower chakras, but it's still manas.
Okay.
See, so now manas doesn't mean that it's negative either.
Okay.
You know, because why? There's no mind trapped in the body.
Mm-hmm.
You understand that?
Mm-hmm.
There's no mind energy trapped in the body. So, if you looked at a diagram of mind of chitta, which is universal mind energy, it flows naturally throughout the universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes into contact with points of consciousness or vortex centers, it quickly turns to manas. But and then when it goes back out, is either manas or chitta or a percentage of manas, right? And then there's a percentage of what? There's a percentage of chitta too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's been contaminated, and it is the chitta, the pure energy, that follows that law to make sure that the manas follow its law. It's been contaminated, but now it's the same way when you look at you read Nature Final Forces, right? And Nature Final Forces, Akasa Akasa operates as mind energy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, although it's not mind energy really, right? But it is the thing that helps mold mind because why?
It's a carrying agent.
It's a carrying agent, see? And that's what mind is, because mind does what? Mind shapes and mold what?
Matter and energy.
Matter and energy. So the same thing. So yeah, so it takes the place of that.
I believe that's it for today. Wait a little bit longer.
So I guess next week if we have a chance, we'll go over this PowerPoint. We'll finish up the mudra,
Next week is Easter.
or we'll,
A week after.
yeah. I mean, we usually meet on
Yeah, we
Easter,
still meet on Easter.
but it's up to you all if you want to meet. So they can tap into us and tell us whether they want to meet or not.
Is it next week or is it the week after?
Let's close out with a prayer.
Yeah, Easter and April Fools. New Lord's Prayer. O divine and wondrous Spirit, O everlasting Lord of hosts, send forth now through me thy great and lasting power. Allow me, Almighty God, the lasting privilege of radiating to all the world thy great love, so that those who suffer may be given the power and energy to rise above their weaknesses. Almighty God, in great humility do I ask you to send forth your power, to give to me this great lasting privilege of being a channel, so that my suffering brothers may be helped and guided and healed and lifted into thy light, so that they who know not may look up and in doing so receive to their higher selves your divine counsel. Almighty God, this day have you granted me a divine privilege. I ask you now to give to me the strength so that never again will I turn from my inner vision of you. Oh, great peace, great peace, great peace. In praise of your greatness, O God, doth my soul sing. Grant it energy to sing on forever and forever. Thank you for watching. See you next week. And hello, Flavio from Brazil. Everybody else from Brazil on watching. Thanks for joining us.